Welcome to today's episode, folks. Today we are talking about what to look out for when buying a bus. We feel like our time here at the bus yard with over 300 buses has allowed us to see some major failures, and we're going to show you what the fluids look like when major failures happen.
So first you want to figure out what body type will work best for you. Are you going to be primarily in BLM? Are you going to be going to national parks that have length restrictions? This will all matter to you whether you want a shorty or a full-size bus. It's all preference. So a lot of people like shorties because they're much less intimidating, but for that reason, they're a lot more expensive. We bought our full-size bus for $2,300, while it is very common for a shorty to be $5,000. The style of bus is 100% preference. If, for example, you are taller, like me and my partner Elijah, which is 6 foot, you're gonna want a Bluebird body, which has the interior starting at 6 feet. Now, if you're looking to do a roof raise, this interior height won't matter at all. After you have figured out the length of bus that would work best for you, the next thing to determine basically is if you want a conventional, i.e. a dog nose or a flat nose bus. This makes a difference because most flat nose buses are not shorties. Most flat nose buses are full length buses. If you are looking for a flat nose mid-size bus, it will end up being a front engine because all rear pushers are full length buses. Now, although we are using words of certainty, there's always the exception because these buses were made to be customizable by the school district they were bought from. So although we're saying that there's no such thing as a rear pusher mid-size bus, you might find the holy grail and come across that one bus. But the statements we're making is the average. It is what most people will come across. So if you find that exception, don't add us about it. We understand there's the rare exception to the rule. Also, when you're determining whether you want a flat nose versus a conventional bus, you will want to take a look at the accessibility of the motor itself. By that I mean a rear pusher and a dog nose are easier to work on than a front engine bus. Everything on the front engine bus is just really hard to access and it's just really tight in there. If you take a look at our video about how to maintenance your school bus, this was done on a front engine flat nose and we had to drive it up a ramp to be able to access anything. Which brings us to another point, that all flat nose buses have lower ground clearance than a dog nose. So if you want to do more BLM lands than you do RV parks, you might want to go for a dog nose. Eli will be talking about more of the mechanical things you need to look out for whenever you're buying your bus. And we will do that showing off a lot of these buses and issues that you want to look out for to make sure you're not buying this detrimental bus. Another thing I can mention is that if you are looking for a full-size bus, you want to stay away from smaller engines like the 5.9 Cummins. Although the Cummins is a great engine, we have it, we do love it, we do think it's a reliable engine, it is underpowered for a full-length bus. We live on a bus yard, so we have a lot of buses to show you these different options. So let's go outside. So now we're going to show you the different length options of buses. With conventional buses, the nose is included in the length, so that may need to be taken into account whenever you decide how long you want your bus and how much livable space you want inside. So I've just measured a 5-window bus back all the way to the front of the nose, and it sits around 21 to 22 feet. This is a 6-window handicap bus. This bus is 23.5 feet. Now let's go measure a 7-window bus. This 7-window bus is 24 feet. Now let's go measure an 8-window bus. That 8-window bus is 28 feet. This is a 14-window rear pusher full-size bus, and it is 39 feet, give or take a foot. This is a conventional bus. It's got a dog nose and is the most common bus you'll find. This one has 12 windows and sometimes they can be 13. This bus is actually the size of what our bus, Magnolia, is. 36 feet. This bus is 36 feet. So now we're gonna measure interior size. This right here is a full-size conventional bus, and next we'll measure the interior of a full-size flat-nose bus. I'm gonna stop right here, and this is 28 feet. This is a flat-nose rear pusher, full-length bus. All right, including the engine in the back, because you can put a bed on it or something, you've got 33 feet of interior livable space in a full-sized rear pusher.
Wind's good, talk to me.
All right, finally we're going to show you the interior livable space of a mid-size bus. This one specifically is 7 windows. The length of this bus on the interior is 19 feet.
So we've already talked about the bus body, and once you've picked that, now it's time to tackle the motor problem, because there are 6 different motor manufacturers over the course of 50 years. There are 16 to 20 different motor options within those 6 manufacturers. So a lot of information, a lot of motors, a lot of options. How are we going to figure it out? I'm not going to be the one to suggest a certain motor because it is all preference. I will leave you with a couple of notes. A lot of people say that Cat and Mercedes are a more expensive motor option, and it's not quite that accurate. I like to pitch the idea of availability of parts. There are 2 engines specifically that part availability is amazing for, and that is the 5.9 Cummins and the 7.3 Power Stroke International motor. Because these were both used in pickup trucks, you can find these parts at O'Reilly's, AutoZone, all across the country. The Cat and Mercedes engine, to source parts, you will either have to find them online or go to a dealership or a truck-specific parts house. So it's just an inconvenience of availability of parts. It's not a more expensive or not. All of them are expensive. So sourcing these parts and waiting on these parts are very critical when you're living in the bus. There are not many mechanics who will let you live on their property while waiting for these parts. A lot of people have gotten lucky, but a lot of people have not and have to post up in hotels while waiting for parts. So part availability should be on your radar while motor shopping. We have 6 different motor manufacturers that were put in these buses, and they are Cat, Mercedes, International, and Navistar is same company. Cummins, General Motors, and Detroit Diesel. And between these 6 motor manufacturers, they've produced 20 or more motors. And the only reason I'm saying that there are 20 different motor options is because you'll be shopping from a broad range of year models, and every decade these motors go through changes, and sometimes they go through more than one change in a decade, and it changes the whole motor itself. So That's why I say 20 different options. I would talk about transmissions with you guys on this video, but we've already made a very detailed transmission video. Check it out up there. So now that you've found the body style of bus you want and the motor you want, now it's time to check that motor out. So we're going to check the motor oil, we're going to check the radiator and the antifreeze in it, we're going to check the transmission fluid, and we're going to check all the hoses and lines that these fluids run through for any cracks, dry rot, or loose connections or leaks. On the bus itself, we will be checking for rust as well as the tire conditions. And finally, we're going to check for blow-by. I have parked about 10 of them in the back that are broken. For sure broken. Bad transmissions, burnt motors, very rusty. I parked all the really bad ones in the back so we will be able to show you where they are and what a major failure looks like.
This is our rusty piece of doo-doo.
This is a rusty piece of doo-doo. As you can see by the frame rail and the shock, we got a rusty bus. This is a Cat. It's a Cat 3126. This one is a Cat motor. The yellow gives it away. Caterpillar's yellow. International engines are blue. The Cat, it's a good motor. So this Caterpillar motor still runs, but this bus is parked in the bad section because of how rusty it is. It's actually rusted through all the brake lines and has no brakes. So you can see the motor oil is still good.
And by good, you mean
It's on
filled?
It's on a good level. It's filled. It's black. I mean, it needs to be changed, but all the oil is going to be black. Every time you check the oil, I do it 3 times. The first time I pull, I don't count that.
It's just to get a clean dipstick.
And I get an average of all 3 pulls. See, this one's a little higher. Now we're going to go for a third. Good oil level, but it's a rusty piece of doo-doo. So there is no good deal on a rusty bus. This is so rusty that chunks come through. The only thing buses like this are good for is the motor and the transmission. Let's just say they're good for parts, and the only parts that haven't rusted. You do not want to build a home out of a bus like this. It's only going to keep growing. Once the rust starts, it never stops and it doesn't sleep. So it's only going to get worse. We will show you what a little bit of rust looks like, and our bus does have a little bit of rust. Some might say our bus has too much rust, but I still believe that our bus will outlive us in the rust department. This bus will not. So you can see this is all patchwork that was recently done. If you didn't see it already, it's from Kansas. So this is a northern bus. The most common places for rust are going to be the wheel wells and the back underneath the windows. We'll go look. I guarantee you there's rust. This is the back side of it. You can see the rust going through the rib rails, as well as the bottom section of this guy here. This is all the most common places for rust. So these little brackets here, you can't see it because it's all rusted away, is what holds on this frame to the body. You can see the body's really rusted. It's so rusted, I only had to cut half of these So I'm gonna go ahead and say that that is too much rust. You wanna crawl under here and make sure these guys are still intact. A lot of people complain about this piece of frame being rusty, but I promise you that this piece of frame, even in the condition it's in, will last longer than you on Earth. So it's really these guys you need to watch all the way down. You can see I started blowing them out here, but I didn't have to blow out much. So now we'll show you what a little bit of rust looks like. This is a Southern Louisiana bus its whole life. It's never seen salt, but wheel wells are very common to find rust. This whole wheel well area is pretty rusty. We've got some flake coming on the bottom of the floor. Some would say this is too much rust. I would disagree. There were no holes at all in the subfloor from the top. It was all just surface rust.
So like this is like our worst piece, is what you're saying?
Yeah, this is our worst piece here. So I still don't see evidence. I added water and I still don't see evidence of the head gasket that's blown. I do know that this bus has a blown head gasket. One, because the owner told me it did, and because it does run like crap. So if you were to get in a bus with a blown head gasket, it wouldn't make it 10, 20 miles down the road. You'd be very lucky to get another 100 miles out of it. The owner knew that, so they shut it down, disconnected the drive shaft, and towed it the rest of the way, because the more you drive it in this condition, the more damage you're going to do to the motor. I am not going to turn it on because I do not want to ruin this bus any further. Since I can't show you on here because oil and water don't mix, so once the motor's been sitting a while, they'll separate and the water will go to the bottom. And so since water goes to the bottom, I'm going to take the plug off of the oil pan and show you the water that comes out. When this bus was warm, when I pulled it back here, the oil had this chocolate milkshake texture to it, and this is what you want to watch out for. When it gets warm and mixes the water and oil, it will turn this nasty color. This can be found once the engine is warm. This evidence of milkshake colored oil will be everywhere. It'll be in the valve cover cap, it'll be on the dipstick, it will be, if you drain the oil, it will be everywhere. But once this cools down and everything settles, it will separate again, and you won't be able to tell if it has water in it in the dipstick when it's cooled and separated.
Oh, that's water. Wow, that's a lot of water. There's the oil. Cap it.
I lost my screw!
Okay, so Eli is stuck holding the thing because he dropped the bolt in there.
Another red flag to pay attention to when looking for a blown head gasket is going to be an empty reservoir for the radiator. This is your radiator for the water that cools the motor down. A blown head gasket is going to make the oil and water mix, and it's going to empty the reservoir into the oil. So if you come across the bus, you check this cap, this is empty. It could just be loose fittings, it could just be bad hoses, it could be a water pump that is starting to fail. There are other things that could make this reservoir empty, but this is going to be a red flag. An empty reservoir means you need to check additional things. So this reservoir is a little low, like right here, which is okay to be low. If this is empty, that's your red flag. So even though this radiator is at a good level. It is full of water. So when you have a water pump or a hose that busts and you let a lot of your antifreeze out, a lot of people put water instead of antifreeze because it's the cheaper option. And it's okay to do that when you're going through a repair, when you're going through some services, but you never want to leave the system full of water. It will cause all the water jackets inside of the motor to rust. And you can see that this whole reservoir is a burnt orange color, which means that this water's been in here for a while and this motor has already started to rust and oxidize. So when you check your reservoir, you're checking for antifreeze. It's going to be a red, orange, or green color, and it should fill the reservoir up. I'm going to dip test it and show you the liquid that's in there, since it's been pretty hard to see on camera.
Yeah, you can see it in the tube. Dirty water. Ooh.
So this is also going to be a red flag, guys.
Okay.
It should be a bright red, which means that this is probably cut with water. Let's see if we can find one that's pure antifreeze. This is okay too. The only problem with pure water is the rust that it creates.
We have some faith in this one. It looks red even when you like put your shadow over it, it looked red. There we go. Now you can see that on camera.
Okay. So this is a newer bus. This is like a 04, maybe an 05. No, this is the 7.3, which ended in 04. Anyway, it's going to be more common to find the water problem on older buses because water pumps go out, hoses pop, things happen, and this stuff is $12 a gallon, sometimes more. So there's your radiator checklist.
So this is good fluid, this is colored, no water.
Our bus is green antifreeze, and there are 3 different colors, I believe. It's important you use the right color and don't mix. If you don't know what goes in your engine, look on Google.
Okay.
You have to check the transmission fluid while it's hot, idling, and in neutral, which is not a problem because most of these buses don't have a park anyway. And we're going to compare this fluid with a fresh napkin on some good fluid. So you can see out of these 2 fluids which one is bad. The more miles and the more wear and tear on your transmission, the more the clutches burn up and leave all this black residue inside of your nice, pretty fluid. This is just going to be a quick clip to inform you that all the freightliner hoods have failures like this. Our bus did it. We finally found a cheap hood, but the secret is to take the torsion bar off. They all break at the torsion bar, and it just holds a ton of pressure and always breaks through. So if you take this torsion bar off in the back here, it's supposed to assist the hood in lifting up. We've taken ours off. It's been a couple of years now. It does not affect the weight of the hood coming up much at all. Not for the expense that it costs. So we are going to show you what too much blow-by is, because we happen to have a bus that I truly believe has too much blow-by. It has no power, it does not have a check engine light on, and it is puking oil up out of the dipstick and smoking when you take the valve cap off. Blow-by happens after your piston and your rings are worn in very badly. This happens after high mileage or poor maintenance or very badly set valve lash. And it only becomes a problem when it's excessive blow-by. This is when the gases escape on the sides of the pistons and the rings and enter the crankcase, which produces too much crank pressure and blows oil everywhere. Blows oil where it's not supposed to go, and this is when it becomes a real problem. As you can see, it's puking oil out of the dipstick, which is why I believe it has too much blow-by. Now, I always tell everyone to take the valve cover off, turn it upside down, and if it blows it off, it's too much blow-by. But this bus is passing that test. But as you can see, it has a massive oil leak. It's just blowing it all out of the tube, as well as having no power. This bus couldn't even make it over the hump to get washed in the wash bay, which is a problem. So unfortunately, it passed the test, and the bus is warm. It's at operating temperature, and Amber also tried to give it some throttle, and I put my hand over it, and I did not feel much pressure coming out of the valve cover. But this bus is still a high mileage at 240,000 miles. I still believe it has excessive blow-by, even though it has passed the valve cover test. There are other tests you can do. They need instruments, such as the pump down test, that tests the vacuum, and a compression test will test the upper cylinders compressions, or how much pressure they hold. And there's also a water trick that I'm not going to do, but you put your breather tube down into a bucket of water, seal the dipstick area, and visualize how many bubbles are coming out. So if you, for some reason, don't think this bus has blow-by, you think it's another issue, leave a comment down below. I am not a mechanic, guys. I am a self-proclaimed mechanic. So don't take my word as stone cold truth and fact, because I am often wrong, and I am often reminded that I do not know everything, though I always have an answer for everything. Now we're going to talk about where to get a bus. A lot of you already know you can get buses from auction. Another place to get buses is dealerships. We currently live on a bus dealership, and we have been for the last year. Now, let's go in order of cheapest to most expensive. Your cheapest option is going to be the auction, but it is now currently 2022, and we are in August, and buses are no longer cheap on the auction sites. I know of about 20 or more auction sites, and all of these buses are now priced really high, so far from where we came in 2018 when we were bus shopping. You hear so many people talking about you can get a bus for $1,000, $2,000, and you're stupid for paying more than that, and that's not true anymore in today's market. We see buses going for $3,000, $4,000 that don't run, that have to be towed away from the auction site. So the auctions are saturated. It is a competitive market right now, but they probably are still the cheapest option. The other issue with auctions is you don't know much. Sometimes you can get a lot of information from the school district, but a lot of times you can't. And a lot of times they're marked as needing to be towed, and they could just need a key, or they could just need a battery, or they could have a blown motor. You don't know. Through my conversations with the owner of this yard, he's got 30 years of experience buying buses from auction. After speaking with him, he says that only 40% of these buses will get you across the country 100% reliable. He says 60% of them will always give you trouble getting home or have to be towed home, which is a big percent. That's over half your luck at auction. And when you buy from a dealership, they have bought a lot of these bad buses. You think because they buy the bus for cheap and then jack the price up that they're robbing you, but there's a lot of overhead that comes with these buses. There's a lot of issues that arise driving them across the country, getting them back home. I've learned this from being on the dealership the last year. My attitude may have been different last year, but I can tell you now that 40% of these buses are going to be 100% perfect for you, or reliable enough to get you where you need to go. Any bus that sits up, any bus that's been retired by the school district, it needs maintenance, it needs love, it needs care. I think number 2 is going to be the private platform, and we're going to call the private platform eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, forums like Skoolie.net and Bus Conversion Magazine, and other forums online. These are all going to be private markets that repost buses for sale. The private market is where I found my bus in 2018. In Louisiana, a lot of bus drivers are owner operators. So I actually got my bus from the owner who drove it almost its entire life. I'm gonna call number 3 most expensive place to get a bus the quitters. I'm gonna call this the people who have started a bus conversion, put $10,000, $15,000 into it, and figured out that they don't like the life. They are not passionate, and it takes a passionate person to live this life. I'm sure if you look hard enough and diligent enough, you can find a great deal. But number 3 goes out to the quitters. And be careful with the quitters, because most of those are do-it-yourselfers. And sorry, Carl, but number 4 is gonna be dealerships. We're gonna be the most expensive because of the overhead, because they're in it for a profit. There are a handful of dealerships that I know of. The owner of this one has multiple. He has one around Houston and this one over here in the Corpus Christi area. I know of a smaller mom and pop. They have about 50 buses in San Antonio. There is AAA. All their Skoolie friends know AAA in Phoenix. He's got a good reputation. It's not hard to find a bus dealership, but it is hard to find good rust-free buses. And, just below that snow line is the best place to get them, from Florida to California. Just like this dealership here, after 30 years, Carl has gotten really good at buying the buses that he knows will perform well for him. So we have 115 buses here now that we've finished inventory, and this is one of the positive reasons to buy from a dealership. All of the risk is off of you because the bus has already been driven. It's a guaranteed good bus, and just like this dealership here, the owner, on many occasions, he has sold a bus that has gone bad, and he has given the money back or has traded the bus for something of equal value. So don't be scared to fly to the south or drive to the south to look for a bus and drive it across the country, because that will give you plenty of time to learn how to drive the bus, as well as finding out what needs to be done to that bus in mechanical terms. Because this month we make 4 years building our bus, and this is mostly because we've been paying so much attention to the mechanics. We do a little bit to the bus, and then we drive the bus. We put a lot of miles on our bus in the 4 years of driving, and every time we go on a big trip, we figure out something else that can be done to the mechanics to make us feel better and have a peace of mind. So we see a lot of people on social media not driving their buses, spending years with the bus just sitting for the first big trip they take to have a major blowout and be very discouraged, sometimes having a huge bill. I would encourage you guys to buy a Southern bus, drive it across the country, drive that bus every time you finish a project. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube as well. That is a very important step in the bus buying process. because we have a lot of information to share with you guys, just like this video. A helpful tip to learn about your engine is forums. Skoolie.net is a forum that I did not use honestly till we got here in the last few months, but it is a valuable resource. A lot of people are there, a lot of people post. I was reading forums from different places, just Googling different keywords. Also Facebook has lots of groups, and many of these motors, such as the T444E, is the 7.3 Power Stroke that comes in a Ford pickup truck. The 5.9 Cummins, it also comes in a Dodge pickup truck. The 6.0 is another Ford engine that is used in some of these shuttle buses. And you can find all of these groups on Facebook, and people are just so knowledgeable and ready to rip you apart at any stupid question you have. So, great resource if you're having trouble finding information. If you're still trying to figure out if bus life is something you want to do, I am going to offer some words of discouragement. Because if you can see the shirt I'm wearing, it's a nice reflective safety shirt. Amber's grandmother actually gave me this shirt for when I'm on the side of the road broken down in the bus. She was worried that I wouldn't be seen while I was trying to fix my bus in the middle of the night. With that being said, if you are not a mechanic, you don't have to be a mechanic. If you are not mechanically inclined, if you are not used to turning bolts and using tools and doing things yourself, this is not going to be a lifestyle that is going to be enjoyable for you. I like to say a lot that the only reliable thing about a school bus is its unreliability. But the same is said for dirt bikes and a lot of other hobbies, and people still love them. There's still a lot of passion that goes into it and a community that is always surrounded. A bus is going to break down on you. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so if you aren't prepared for that financially, mentally,
emotionally,
it's going to be a hard life, and it's going to be a discouraging one. That's why I'm giving these discouraging thoughts. You have to be a problem solver. You have to be able and willing to do things you haven't done before and learn new trades and do things that are probably dangerous, because an angle grinder bites. I have many scars just from that one tool. But if that's not you, I hope you have deep pockets, because paying professionals to deal with that stress for you is quite pricey. It's not a matter of saving money or not. It's a matter of it being a passion and a lifestyle that you'll enjoy, with the freedom and accessibility to have your house anywhere in the country. If you're interested in something that we haven't touched on, please comment below. We would be happy to make another video and show you all of the 300 buses that we have to offer here.
Thanks for watching, y'all. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see ya in the next one.